September 11th, 2001, a day that any American who was old enough to remember would remember for the rest of their lives and can tell you exactly where they were when this attack happened. By the end of that day, roughly 3,000 people would be dead, and American soldiers would head over to Afghanistan and Iraq to fight the terrorists that caused this horrendous attack on American soil. While Americans right after the attack would feel relatively afraid and sad about the events happening, it quickly turned into anger towards the people who would dare attack American soil during a relatively peaceful time in American history. Overall, the emotion of fear was one of the biggest emotions that spread throughout America right around this time, especially with the widespread news coverage through not only radio and newspapers, but also through the use of television, where Americans from across the country could see live video footage of the towers falling. Many Americans, because of this attack, would be unsure about what would happen next. And that also heightened their fear. They weren't sure who attacked entirely and where would be attacked next if there was going to be more attacks. So what happened to make America so afraid? Let me get into the details. The attacks on 9/11, as it's now known to many young adults, was an attack that took place in New York City when planes crashed into the Twin Towers, and these buildings were a part of the World Trade Center, which was a complex of 7 buildings that had a plaza in the middle and had a shopping mall underneath that connected all of these buildings, or connected 6 of the 7 buildings together. The Twin Towers were the center and the tallest of the buildings, and they were distinguished between the North Tower and the South Tower. On the day of 9/11, 19 terrorists from Al-Qaeda attacked and hijacked 4 commercial airlines, and they would take those 4 planes and proceed to crash 2 of them into the North and South Towers, completely demolishing the buildings. The 3rd plane they would take and hit the Pentagon. Thankfully, that attack did not take as many lives and only proceeded to cause more structural damage. But the 4th plane, which was part of Flight 93, would never reach its intended destination. The passengers of Flight 93, which was the 4th airplane, realized what their plane was meant for, and when they realized that, they decided to fight back and try to regain control of the plane. And in doing so, that plane crashed into Pennsylvania field, killing everyone on board. In total, the attacks killed 2,977 people from 90 nations. Now, since the events of 9/11, America has changed in multiple ways. First, with having troops in Afghanistan. Many Americans and politicians would agree that the goals of America for having troops in Afghanistan were never achieved. And furthermore, when the Biden administration, during his presidency, decided that they would withdraw American troops, it actually ended up in more violent encounters, which cost more American lives in the end. Another one of the long-term effects is how Americans view the Middle East and how we also view people from that area. Right after the attacks, there was a lot of racism and bias against people who were from the Middle East, and a lot of anger and distrust towards anyone who came from that area, and towards the Middle East in general, because of what they did to America. In our modern world, because of this attack from 9/11, this fear for Americans that another terrorist attack might happen has never really gone away. Before 9/11, Americans thought that an attack couldn't happen, that America was too big of a country and that we were too strong and too powerful for an attack to happen. But 9/11 revealed an attack can happen to anyone. And America is not excluded from that just because we are a very powerful country. And finally, because of this attack, one of the last, and I think most significant for people in our generation or younger, is our national security. We see that through the United States requiring IDs to verify your identification when you fly. So when you go get your driver's license now, most states require you to get a star card, which means that on one of the corners of your driver's license, there's going to be a little star that proves that you are who you are, and you've proved documentation to prove that. Another thing that has changed, and you'll see this a lot when you travel, is airport security. They not only x-ray your bag, they x-ray you and scan you to make sure that you're not hiding something on your person. They restrict, there's a lot stricter rules in what is allowed to go on through security and on the airplane, as well as before, the cockpits where the pilots weren't necessarily the most secure place. The flight attendants would be able to go back and forth between the cockpit and be able to talk with the captain, and that was one of the reasons why the planes were hijacked so easily. So since then, planes have restricted the cockpit. There's a lot more security, so that once the pilots get in, it's only going to be open from the pilots, to help make sure that planes stay safe and there's less likely of an attack from them. There is a lot more effects than that, but that's going to be up to you guys for research. I'm only providing a model of what I would like for you guys to do.